Good evening. Welcome to the Vineland Board of Education meeting for October 3rd at 5:30 p.m. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Here.
Mr. Holmes?
Here.
Mr. Jennings?
Present.
Mr. Medio?
Here.
Mr. Sobrana?
Present.
Ms. Spinelli?
Here.
Mr. Ulrich?
Present.
Ms. Acosta?
Here.
Mr. Boardley?
In compliance with the New Jersey Public Meeting Law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Law, the Board of Education has caused notice and posting of this meeting to be sent to the following: announcing time and place thereof, agenda, etc. The Daily Journal, SNJ Today, the Press of Atlantic City, Nuestra Comunidad, Visto Bueno, the Clerk for the City of Vineland, and the Administrative Office of Public Bulletin Board. Would you all please rise for the flag salute? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a resolution for an executive session?
Yes. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City of Vineland School District will convene into executive session on Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018, for the following reasons as outlined in NJSA 10:4-12. Discussion of 17 West Landis Avenue Building, Max Leuchter School Building, Oaken Main Building, and any matters falling within the attorney-client privilege to the extent that confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise his ethical duties as a lawyer.
Can I have a motion for executive?
Motion.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes. Okay. We're going to take a short recess for executive session, and we'll be back. Good evening. Thank you for your patience. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce the students from Cunningham Camelot program. And if you could please come forward, the students from the Camelot program, they were going to do the flag salute initially when we started, but we're going to do the flag salute in their presence here. Thank you, students.
We have certificates for
If
each
you
of
could
you.
please
Thank
just
you for being
wait,
here.
we're going to give out certificates to the students and then take a picture in the hallway or here.
I have to do that mandatory training by some. Oh, we'll have to. We should do it together.
Yes, we should.
Have some cocktails. Be online.
Oh, that would make it so much fun. Right.
So I'll look, just have it wing it here.
Yeah, and make sure you tell Nick his process.
Oh, yeah. Just look it up.
My FaceTime won't go off. No.
Thank you so much for being here this evening. And thank you.
Thank you
for
very
coming.
much. That's weird.
Sounds like it works, and sometimes it
I know, it's really weird. It's. All right, so then I'm going to say, Dr.
doesn't. Are there any special presents?
Are there any special presentations? Okay. Yes, we do. And then we have the special presentations. And then,
And,
who does the head? Do you want to say?
oh, you don't have to say things. You just say, does anybody have any questions about the HIB? They all have the HIB report, so anybody have any questions about the HIB?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's hot in here. A little stinky.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. Dr. Gruccio, do we have any special presentations?
Yes, we do. First, I'd like to call forward Dr. Joseph Rossi, and he is going to be presenting Perfect Attendance Awards to several people in our district, and I just want to say congratulations and thank you for taking your job seriously and being here on a regular basis. That means a lot.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gruccio and board members. As Dr. Gruccio said, we're here to honor our perfect attendance recipients. Total of members, we had 125 full-time employees who did not take a sick day in 2017-18, and there was another 60 individuals who only took one sick day. We're pleased to have about 45 of our recipients with us. we have a certificate from the board, and we'll take a picture in the hallway. So when you come up, you'll have a group of board members to give you certificates. Mr. Ulwich, you are first. Okay, we're going in alphabetical order. Our Delago teacher, Paula Andro. From Petway, Brian Anthony. The Delago nurse, Diane Berezin. From the South Building, Sonia Bertini. One of our skilled craftsmen, Jerry Capriati. Okay. Maintenance supervisor, George Cardona Colon. By the way, all of Mr. Weaver's administration is recognized in this award each year, and we really appreciate that. Mr. Weaver and his people are always in perfect attendance. One of our clerk drivers, Patrick Casaza. A Petway paraprofessional, Val Denise Chinez. High school teacher, Nicole Chinisi. From Lincoln Avenue, Veronica Cruz. Speech and language therapist, Denise Diorio. And the youngest person in this group, Hank Ehrlich from the stage crew at the high school. Thank you, sir. Yeah, right, they're going out now. Okay, group number one, thank you very much. And Ms. Spinelli's group is next. The Assistant Director of Maintenance, Paul Farinaccio. Johnstone AMSA teacher, Evelise Flores. Assistant Superintendent, Nathan Fry. High school teacher, Donna Garrett. Special Education Director, Terry Godlewski. School bus driver, Deborah Gowdy. Thank you, Deborah. Petway teacher, Joyce Gunther Nolan. School bus driver, George Henry. The secretary to the assistant superintendent, Kara Irvine. Yeah. Rossi school teacher, Danielle Lampkin. From Wallace, Stacy Martine. Building maintenance worker, John Mizaki. From Petway, Regina Merkel. And currently working in the hallway, video production and public relations officer, Gia Mazur. She's here. Thank you very much. Inez Acosta is handling our last group, which has the most last-minute additions in it, so. Wallace teacher, Linda Milletta. Maintenance supervisor, Robert Pataki. Durand paraprofessional, Tracy Pataki. From security, Edilberto Quinones. Barcy teacher Olga Raphael. High school teacher Louis Russo. School bus driver Arthur Shalik. Wallace teacher Evelyn Speaker. Rossi paraprofessional Terry Terrell. DePalito teacher David Tisch. Our deaf education teacher Tara Todd. Food service worker Mary Underwood. Rossi paraprofessional Kim Vinnick. Winslow teacher William Walsh. The executive director of facilities Wayne Weaver. High school teacher Natalia Wilson. Rossi teacher Melissa Wolf. Durand teacher Megan Youngblood. And yours truly, I'm honored to be part of this group. Thank you all very much.
Good night.
Hey, Ro. Do you know who she's? They were on the tape. I didn't know. Oh, okay. All right.
That was my good idea, just saying. I know. Good for
something. Well, if I didn't call the meeting, we would have talked about it out here. It's hot.
It is hot. They just fixed the air in here. You never know it. Jesus. I'll have to look at it.
Dr. Gruccio, do we have any other special
do.
presentations?
Thank you, Dr. Rossi, and again, congratulations to the recipients. Next, I'd like to call forward Mrs. Lindy Tish and Miriam Jamal from Vineland High. They are our senior class advisors, and they are going to be presenting the proposal for the 2019 senior class trip.
Thank you. We're pleased to be here. Is this on? Make sure you hold it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. We're not that mic. I don't know. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
Take it out if it's easier.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. We're pleased to be here. We're representing the senior class for their senior class trip this year to Williamsburg, Virginia. We have a short presentation. I know it's going to strain your neck a little bit, but we're just going to go through just a few things. So we've included some of the slides that we are going to present to the parents at the parent meetings. We go more into depth with them, of course, but just to give you an overview, we have class Twitter and a classroom to keep them informed. And of course, our contact information for all parents to get in contact with us and know all the information. Tonight we're just going to go over the itinerary and details in brief. The travel video is only for parents, so we won't do that, but we'll address the financing and go over some questions regarding some of the requests that we have of the board. The itinerary includes 2 nights and 3 days. April 17th through the 19th, that precede the spring break. So really it would be a request of ours to ask for a day and a half for the students to be excused from school in order to attend this trip. We are going to start our trip off at the Washington, D.C. museums and the National Zoo. These are free to enter, and this is on our way to Williamsburg, so we included this as part of the trip for the students. When we get to the lodging, which is the Doubletree Hotel, we are going to have a dinner dance party for them, which includes their dinner. The second full day is going to be Busch Gardens, and they will be getting 2 meals a day, breakfast, and then a dinner at night provided by the hotel. King's Dominion is going to be the last and final day, and they have breakfast, and then we leave right from King's Dominion back to Vineland High School. And we'll be arriving back Saturday before Easter, or the holiday. Lodging is in Doubletree Hilton Hotel. We will have security there provided by the Adventure Student Travel. And students will be on separate levels, girls on one level, boys on another level, for obvious reasons. Our travel agent is Lindsay Bixenman. She's been our go-to for everything with this trip, and she will be helping us with all the payments as well. The cost of the trip in total is $563 per student, which is less than half of what the Disney trip was last year. So that was a major reason why our student officers came to us to propose a different trip option. All admission fees are included in this price, breakfast and dinner, hotel accommodations for the 2 nights, round-trip motor coach, the security, and then we have a T-shirt and drawstring bag as well. All of this is included in the $563. So that's our short overview. We are also asking the board if we could have the nurse paid for by the districts. This has been a request for the previous senior trips, and this is only to alleviate some of the cost of the trip for the students. Since the nurse is an essential part of that, we don't believe that the students should have to pay when they're paying for their admission, their accommodations, round trip, and security. So that's in brief our proposal. Are there any questions or concerns?
Any questions? No?
I have one
Yes.
question, and where the security, who are they again?
Security is provided by the agency. They have certain people that come out just for us, and they will be securing the hallways from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So that is through the agency that we have, which is Adventure Student Travel.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your presentation was very informative.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last presentation this evening is from Mrs. Dina Rodolfo, and she will be talking about our presentation on district test scores.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to take this off. I'm short. This presentation that I have tonight, it is over 60-plus slides. It's very lengthy. It's got a lot of data. I'm going to present, I'll present the first 3 grade levels, and I'll give you an example of what each slide represents. And this way, I'm going to post it tonight to our district website, and you'll be able to look through it and look at all the data. What I do want everybody to understand is the piece that we had in it last year with the student SGPs, the SGPs for our students. It's not in here because they're not out yet. The state is making us do this a month earlier. SGPs don't didn't come out last year till November. So once we get that information, I will put it on here and I will send it out to everybody again, and then you'll have that information in there. I just feel like the SGPs in conjunction with the score gives a better picture than just the score. So with that being said, so the purpose of this is just to go over our district scores. Like I said, the SGPs will be added. They'll be added towards the, once they're posted. Math and language arts is in here. Our science assessment is not in here because it was a field test last year. It was the first time that we took the online test, so it is not in here. What I also included in here is our current state assessments, our graduation requirements, and also, as I'm sure everybody's aware, there's been a lot of talk about changing the graduation requirements and changing the PARCC assessment. So I do have some slides in here that address that and the changes that are upcoming. So each grade level will have each school listed below it. This is third grade. This will address, this has their scores. This has what the district score is, the PARCC score, and what the state average is. There are also a slide for each grade level that includes their comparison from 14-15, the inception of PARCC, all the way through last year. So it'll basically show you the trend for state, PARCC, and district for each grade level, as well as how each school did in comparison. And again, it's the same thing for math, where there's their math scores for each school, as well as the math comparison from the start, as well as where it is currently. So you'll be able to see the trends with the different schools, and you'll be able to see how that relates in comparison to the state, to the PARCC states, which that's what PARCC means, the PARCC states, and for our district. So again, fourth grade language arts, we'll have this, you know, each grade level will address each year. What I did for each one as well is I looked at each grade level in comparison to how they did the year before. So it looked at those same group of students in third grade, how they did, and how they did when they moved on to fourth grade in a particular school. Not necessarily exactly the same students, because there always is some fluctuation, but it's the same school, those students as they transition on. Fourth grade math, and the same thing, fourth grade year-to-year comparisons, and as well as the third to fourth grade mathematics comparisons, where you can see how that same group of students did from third grade and when they moved up to fourth grade. And again, there's fifth grade, but the one thing that is very interesting, I'm going to get there. So this is the third through fifth grade comparison cohort. So basically it's looking at those third graders when they started in 2016 and as they progressed all the way through. So it'll show you their third grade 2016 scores, their fourth grade 2017 scores, and their fifth grade 2018 scores. So again, not exactly the same students because there is some movement, but for the most part, unfortunately, this year with the redistricting, this is going to look a little bit different next year, but that's what these look at. And again, all those slides that I just mentioned, there is one for each grade level and for each 6 to 8 grade, and then for the high school. So I don't want to go over each one individually because we'll be here all night because it's a lot of data. It's a lot of data. So these are your 6th grades. Your 7th grade. I'll just show you the cohorts because those are interesting. Oh, somebody saying? Oh, so like I said, I don't know if we're short on time or not, and I don't know how much. It's so much data. I can go over.
Speed readers here.
I can go over every detail if you want, but like I said, it's just a lot of data. So this is your 7th grade mathematics year to year. Here's your 6th grade mathematics comparison. So this is your 2017 to 2018. So this is what they did one year in comparison to the next. And again, without having the student growth percentages, we don't really know how much growth they're making. So, you know, looking at these scores, you may see a school that may not be meeting or exceeding expectations, but if we had those growth percentages, we might know that, well, the students are really making growth. It's just we're not quite there. You know, it's not quite translating. Sure.
State, park.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, state is up here, park is here. What does that mean, real quick?
So the state, that's basically saying those state scores are what the state average is.
And what's the park average?
The park averages are basically like the park states, those states that take the park test. So there's only, I think, 6 or 7 states left. So that's the park consortium. So those park states that are, yeah. And then there's our district. And I think there used to be like 11 states, 12 states that did park. I think we're down to like 6 now. There's only like 6 or 7. So that's, so here's our 8th grade language arts. Here's our 8th grade year to year. So this shows essentially where those group of students, where those students did, how those students did in 8th grade across the board in each school. The 7th to 8th grade language arts comparisons. Mathematics. This is the mathematics comparison year to year. So this looks at each school again and compares how they did each year in 8th grade math, 7th to 8th grade math. And here's the cohort. This is what, like I said, this kind of looks at those students when they come in 2016 and then when they leave in 2018. So it looks at them as they go through. And this is the data for that. And here's the mathematics cohort. And again, what I found interesting in this, and this is a trend that I noticed, I'm just going to point it out. Every state, park, for mathematics this year, the state average, the park average, and unfortunately our district averages did go down, but that's, the state went down, park went down, and the district went down. So I don't know if it was something to do with the test or if the questions, I don't know, but you can see the trend. And it was across the board with math. And this is our high school. Our 10th grade language arts year-to-year comparison. And the one thing I do want to say about the high school, and I'm just going to preface this, with the graduation requirements and the way they've been changing up until the class that's coming in, they've had many ways to meet their graduation requirements. So for a lot of our students, even though we tell them they have to take the test, even though we tell them they have to sit and take the test, they choose not to. So when you're looking at these scores, you have to keep in mind that a lot of our students, especially our 11th graders, and some of our 10th graders. So when you're looking at your Algebra 2 scores, when you're looking at your ELA 11 scores, and even some of your geometry and ELA 10, some of our students, a lot of our students in the 11th grade chose not to take the test. We can't force them. We tell them they have to take it, but if they refuse to take it, we can't make them. So the data that you're looking at is a little skewed because you don't see that. You don't see those students who took that test because they already met their graduation requirements and they just didn't want to take the test.
Question.
Sure.
The number of students, do we know how many students, naturally we would, did not take the test?
Yes.
So what is that number?
It's about 200.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot. And that's and basically they met their graduation. For ELA, for Algebra 2, it was about 200. And when you look at the Algebra 2 score, you can see that that score is not the best because you're looking at 200 students who already met their graduation requirements who said, you know, I'm not taking this test. You know, it's an 8-hour test. You know, I'm not taking it. And unfortunately, we tell them they have to take it. Yes.
So they are calculated in the data as well?
No.
So
No, they are not calculated in the data.
So how do they hurt?
Because those students already met their graduation requirement, so they haven't taken the test. If they took the test, their scores would have,
Counted.
yes. You see what I'm saying?
So we're saying the kids that didn't take the test were more intelligent than?
Not more intelligent, they already met their graduation requirement, so they already passed previous tests. They already passed their SAT, they already passed their PSAT, they already passed their ELA 9 or 10.
So maybe they would have contributed to a higher score?
Yes.
Because they were already.
Yes. I'm not saying they're more intelligent, definitely not. I don't believe that at all. I'm just
know.
saying that they didn't take the test. So, you know,
All right, thanks.
okay? So this is our 11th grade language arts year-to-year comparison. Here's our 10th to 11th grade. 9th to 11th grade. This is the 9th grade to 11th grade language arts cohort. So, as you can see, the state and the park trends obviously have gone down, which is across the board with a lot of the park states and the actual state itself. Here's our Algebra 1. Algebra 1 year-to-year comparison. This includes our middle schools on there because our middle schools also have Algebra 1. Geometry also is on here for our middle schools as well because they took geometry. The geometry year-to-year comparison. And this is our Algebra 2. Again, like I said, it does not look great, but you're missing about 200 kids on here. And Algebra 2 growth year-to-year comparison. And what I find interesting for this, and just FYI, the average score for Algebra 2, as you can see for the state, is 725, which is, it's not a great score. It's a passing score, but it's not a great score. It's just passing. And it's not even, it doesn't even meet expectations. That's approaching expectations. So it's not a very high score. So here's our current graduation requirements. I just wanted to put that on there. This is for our current seniors. So as you can see, we're going to run into that same issue again this year if no changes are made. We have students who can use any of these requirements to pass, to meet their graduation requirements. So they can pass any of these. And if they already have, I'm pretty sure we'll be in the same situation as last year. And it's across the state. That's one of the things when we had the consortium here from the state that came out, was that across the state, students are just not taking the test if they met their graduation requirement. This is what is coming up for our current juniors. This is their graduation requirements if Park does not change. So starting next year with our current juniors, they will have to take and pass ELA 10 or Algebra 1. And if they don't, they have to still sit for everything. There's no option not to take the test. They have to sit for every one in order to submit a portfolio. That's the only way. And this is the class of 2021. These are the proposed changes that are before the state board. They were on the agenda for last month. They were pulled. They were put on there again for this month. I just got the agenda the other day, and it is on there. So what they are planning to change is they want to eliminate the our high school students from taking geometry, Algebra 2, ELA 9, and ELA 11. So all they will have to take is Algebra 1 and ELA 10. So that will eliminate a lot of the testing at the high school. They're also going to put in place a list of alternate assessments. So if they don't meet Algebra 1 or ELA 10, there's going to be alternate assessments in there again. Because as of right now, they're phasing those out. They want to keep them in. They're going to decrease the board reporting time, so I might be here even sooner, I guess, next year if the changes go through. And the time that I can get the scores out to parents, and also shortening the time. I didn't put that on there, but they're going to shorten the length of the time of the test, as well as our ELL students at the high school don't have to take the ELA, even the language arts, even if they just arrived here at the high school. That's not so for the younger grades. They're exempt, but they're looking to push that up to the high school, which is great, because making somebody who just got here taking the language arts test is just, it's really difficult. And that's that. This is the graduation pathway report. This is from last year. This is what, it hasn't been updated yet because it's not, it's till next month I have to turn it in. So, my time's up? Yes. All right. No. So the next steps, again, it's the same thing that we do every year. It's, I know that principals in here have been anxiously trying, with all the redistricting, they are anxiously getting scores from other schools, and they're looking at those reports to see where to drive their instruction. We're going to keep using their district coaches. Again, use data. They're going to use it to drive professional development, and continue to look over this through their PLCs. And I think that's it. I am done. Any questions?
Dina, is this online somewhere?
It's going to be tonight. I am posting it tonight under my, it'll be, I can give it to Gia to post, but I also have my own website, and I'll send it out to the board members as well.
Thank
so
you.
you
I'd like
guys
to
will
look
all
at
have it.
in more detail than this way.
Absolutely, because like I said, there's just so much information.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodolfo, for all the information. We look forward to seeing your presentation in further detail. Does anyone have any questions on item B, the HIB report? Seeing none. Motion for approval of minutes, August 22nd, 2018, the combined meeting, and September 12th, 2018, combined meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes. At this time, do we have a public meeting report by the board solicitor?
None for public session.
Do we have any public comment on agenda items?
I have 3 yellow sheets, but after looking at them, they don't seem to relate to agenda items. If any of the 3 people gave them to me and they feel that they are agenda items, please let me know, but from the descriptions, it does not seem to be. So it will be at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Motions and resolutions? Dr. Gruccio?
Okay, I'd like to recommend discussion of the following: retirements, resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, employment, transfers, student substitutes, and extracurricular activities.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding approval of the salary increment withholding effective September 1st of 2018 for a Wallace school teacher whose name is on file with the board secretary.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding an increase in the hourly pay rate of substitute bus drivers from $16 to $17 an hour effective October 15th, 2018.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the withholding of a day's pay from a certified teacher whose name is on file with the board secretary due to misuse of paid leave time retroactive to September 25th, 2018.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend approval of 1.1 through 1.4.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend discussion of trips and district travel.
Comments or questions?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding Board Secretary authorizing to enter into an affiliation agreement for the 18-19 school year for the placement of students for field internship, student teaching, practicum, and observations with the University of Arts in Philadelphia.
Any questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the Board Secretary's authorization to enter into an affiliation agreement for the 2018-19 school year for placement of students for field internship, student teaching, practicum, and observations with Immaculata University of Pennsylvania.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the second reading of the following bylaws, policies, and regulations for adoption. They are all mandated changes. Policy 1613, Regulation 1613, Policy 5561, Regulation 5561, and Policy 8561.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion of the submission of the New Jersey Department of Ed 2017-18 self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. This is required by the state at a public meeting prior to the DOE submission.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the agreement between the Vineland Board of Ed and the Vineland Police Department for access to our video system to assist the board in resolving emergency situations.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend approval of items 2.1 through 2.6.
Motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding a resolution declaring that the district property located at 17 West Landis Avenue is no longer needed for school purposes and authorizing and directing the superintendent to apply for permission to sell or lease this property.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend approval of 3.1.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend discussion of budgetary transfers for the general, school-based, and ECPA budgets for July 2018 and August 2018.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion of the board secretary and treasurer reports for July 2018.
Any questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion of the board secretary and treasurer reports for August 2018.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the placement of special education students.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the submission of the following grant applications. Ocean First Foundation's Model Classroom Grant for Vineland High School South in the amount of $10,000, and for Art Education Grant for Vineland High School South in the maximum amount of $5,000. The State of New Jersey Department of Children and Families Family Friendly Center Grant for Sabatier Elementary School in the amount of $45,463 from July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. And the New Jersey and Supervisors Association Visionary Leadership Award in the amount of $7,000.
Questions or comments?
I have a comment. We have people writing for these grants.
Yes.
I'd like to take a minute and recognize them and thank you for the extra.
Mayor.
I'd like to recommend discussion of Cumberland County Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Service Grant Vineland Municipal Alliance for the period of July 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. This is in the amount of $5,600 for a drug and alcohol-free post-graduation celebration, with the amount to be matched with $1,400 from Vineland Board of Education. No Kids Hungry Grant for Vineland High School Breakfast Cart in the amount of $5,000, and the 21st Century Community Learning Grant for Wallace Middle School from September 1st, 2018 to August 31st, 2019, in the amount of $58,360. Addendum 1 is the United Way funding from September 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019, and this is in the amount of $7,500.
Any comments or questions?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the opening of a new bank account at Newfield National Bank for the John Stone AMSA School Student Activity Account with the following signers: Jeff Du Bois, Christina Craig, Elizabeth Rosa, Eileen Love, and Helen Haley.
Any questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the list of agencies, consultants, and clinicians that is on file with the Board Secretary to be utilized by our child study team as part of the evaluation process when specialized testing is required. The amount of each independent evaluation requested by a parent or guardian is in alignment with NJAC 6A:C1-7, not to exceed $3,000 per evaluator, per Vineland Board of Ed Policy 2468.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion to award the following contract for certified school nurses, an RFP number 21-1819 for the term of October 4th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. Certified school nurse, contractor would be Bayada Home Health Care Incorporated.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the tuition contract between Cumberland County Technical Education Center and the Vineland Board of Education for the 18-19 school year for 3 Strive ESY students in the amount of $2,240 per student per month.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the following Cumberland County Regional Cooperative Transportation Initiatives: the 2018-19 transportation quoted contracts, the 2018-19 transportation addendum, 2018-19 bid number 4, student transportation services record and award.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend approval of items 4.1 through 4.11.
Motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call. Sorry, guys.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes. Okay. Review of bills incurred during July 2018, August 2018, and reapproval of May 2018. Any questions or comments?
Do we have a quick explanation of the reapproval? I didn't see that.
The reapproval of May is because we had noticed during working on our audit that we had payroll items listed on there, and we needed to include the regular bills on there as well for May. So it's really just a correction.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes. Do we have any committee reports?
Policy and Personnel does.
Mr. Medio?
Facilities Committee had a meeting on October 1st, Monday morning, and all the discussion items involved the same things we discussed in closed session tonight. So those minutes won't be available until all those items are completed, finished, whatever word you want to use when we're done with them.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ulrich?
The Policy and Personnel Committee met tonight. Present was Meg Spinelli, Dr. Mary Gruccio, John Frangipani, Dr. Joe Rossi, Eugene Medio, Inez Acosta, myself. I was a little late for the meeting, and then our solicitor at around 5 o'clock also. Personnel items that were discussed, increasing substitute bus driver pay from $16 to $17 an hour for competition reasons. Decision on tenure charges against the teacher is due from an arbitrator. 125 staff members, as you already know, had perfect attendance for the prior school year, and 60 staff members had taken only one day off. Discussion of salary increment withholding against the teacher. Discussion of withholding a day's pay from a teacher. There was a policy 8508. Board is required per a food service audit, lunch offer versus serve, and that is a mandatory policy. Policy number 7250 was brought up and asked to be put on the agenda for discussion regarding the process that the board is going to use for renaming of the Lincoln Avenue School. Mr. Medio, Ms. Spinelli, Ms. Acosta, myself, all came to an agreement how the procedure will go forward for this board, and Mr. DeSanto is going to explain that now.
And this is a recommendation. The Policy Committee makes the following recommendation to the board for the process to be undertaken on the October 17th meeting. The President will open public comment on nominations for the naming of the Lincoln Avenue Middle School in honor of a person meeting the criteria of Policy 7250. Speakers will be requested to sign yellow sheets so that Mrs. Haley can be provided with the correct spelling of the name of each speaker. Those speakers will be called in alphabetical order. In the event someone arrived late or for some reason didn't fill out a sheet, he or she will be permitted to speak after the alphabetic list is completed. The committee is recommending that speakers will be given 3 minutes to make his or her presentation. Mr. Ulrich is pointing out that your bylaws require minimum 5 minutes for public comment. So in the event that the board is limiting, as its authority to do, the speakers to 3 minutes, you'll have to suspend the policy for that presentation night. Mr. Borley will signal when 1 minute remains so that the speaker is given the courtesy of wrapping up his or her comments. Each speaker may make only 1, 3, or 5 minute presentation. Mr. Borley will request the audience to avoid repetitive comment and ask that subsequent speakers only address new points to be made. Speakers may only address nominations submitted prior to the published deadline and whose names were published in the public notice of the October 17 meeting. No new nominations will be received that night by policy. After the public comment is closed, the board members will be given ballots listing the candidates in alphabetical order. Each board member will be requested to check off up to 3 candidates that he or she proposes as a finalist. The ballots will be tabulated by Mr. Musserell, the Assistant BA. He will certify a written report listing in alphabetical order up to 3 finalists receiving preliminary votes. The President will then entertain a motion to name the school in honor of one of the finalists. If the motion is seconded, a roll call vote will be taken. If the nominee receives a majority vote of the quorum present that night, the school will be named after that individual. If not, then a motion may be made for another candidate. If none of the finalists obtain a majority vote on any motion, then the name of the school remains Lincoln Avenue Middle School. So that is the recommendation of the committee. Unless anybody has any objection, The only issue you have to discuss is whether or not you want to suspend the policy requiring 5 minutes to 3 minutes for this particular evening.
Does anyone have any comments?
We should suspend that now.
Yes, I would suggest you spend it now so people are given the opportunity of knowing what your requirement is. Otherwise, they could come prepared for 5 and
Okay.
you say 3 that night.
I make the motion to suspend the 5-minute policy and make a 3-minute presentation.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
One point of clarification. We're going to write down up to 3 names on a piece of paper, is that correct?
Yes.
And our name is going to be at the top of that paper for future.
If that's what the board, yes. And that report that's certified by Mr. Musserell will be kept and available for public inspection. Yeah, it's just a matter, of the whole idea about the written ballot is just to give board members the opportunity, independent of each other, to name who they want to be finalists. So there's no transparency issue there. We're not keeping anything from anybody. But you are correct, Gene.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all. All right. I have no problem with any of this. Thank you.
Rest
Does
of the
it-
board okay with that process?
Did you want to talk about Nick? Just address it.
I'm sorry? Go ahead.
Bob, do you want to explain about Nick?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, there's a question raised. One of the nominees is Mr. Fiocchi's grandfather, and Mr. Fiocchi will not participate in the ballot, but in the event that his grandfather is not one of the finalists, he no longer has a conflict and will be permitted to participate. I'm sorry, I omitted that, Nick.
Bob, one other question. On the initial ballot, you said up to 3.
Yes,
But not necessarily, you could have just 1.
Correct.
yes. That was the committee's recommendation, that no one would be obligated. If someone feels there aren't 3 worthy people, they don't have to do that.
You could actually have 0. Maybe you
Yeah.
want to change the process and call everything public school number 1, public school number 2, and not have any name at all. Up to 3 is the,
Yes.
Who will determine if a nominee does not meet our requirements according to the policy?
That is a matter of interpretation. Our policy is broad enough that a person has to provide service, or the person has to be a benefactor or philanthropist donating. In the past, we've done a preliminary review because it was very easy. Last time, Bill Clinton, Mickey Mouse were nominated, and a couple of people who, God willing, were still alive. And under this policy, you must be deceased 5 years. So to answer your question, board members were given discretion whether or not individually they feel a person is qualified. It's to some people, the qualification is broad enough that it could be interpreted that anybody giving service, local, state, federal, is somebody who is worthy of the nomination, of the designation.
And then, did we want to get clarification on the time limit? I know we pulled up the Roberts rules and it said midnight. Are
Oh.
we concerned that we might go over on the time?
Not with a 5:30 start.
Okay.
You have 5:30 start and you have a limitation. Yeah,
Midnight.
yeah.
And we as the board could adjourn the meeting if that were
Yeah,
the case.
yeah, that's what happens, but
Yeah.
the likelihood is negligible.
Any other questions?
Optimistically negligible. Good question.
Anyone else? Okay. Do we have anyone from the public who wishes to address the board?
We do have 3 yellow sheets. For non-agenda items, they don't necessarily need the yellow sheets, but since they turned them in, I'll read their names.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first one is Dolly Marciano.
I'm a retired language arts teacher, spent 11 years at Veterans Memorial School. Before that, I was in the public sector for 34 years. It was quite an enlightening thing to come to teaching late in life. However, when I retired in 2012, I started substituting, mostly at Memorial, but other schools as well. And I would see class sizes that seemed to me to be fine, 19, maybe some were a little more, but I never had a class that was over, I want to say, 21, 22, 23 students. Since I've substituted, I have seen students sitting on windowsills because they're up to 29 or possibly 31 students. There's not even room in some of the classrooms for them to sit. There should be a classroom set of books. At least when I taught language arts, every student in the room could have their own book to follow along. There's not enough classroom sets of each book. So all I'm saying is this district is so large. I've been to schools where it looks like rooms are not utilized at all, and then I've seen schools where they're so overcrowded that I can't believe that's conducive to learning and to teaching. You put all of us in a room together, all cramped in, what's the number one thing you're going to find? We're all going to be talking to each other. And the teacher is standing there like, hello, I'm here. So it just seems to me that with a board such as yourselves, we should be able to find a better way to distribute students so that everybody has the same opportunity and we're not crowded in or there's only 10 students in one room, but 30 in another. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki Miller.
Good evening. I guess 2 weeks ago when there was a board meeting, they were talking about special ed. And the questions that were asked, I couldn't believe, is how long does it take a special ed child to get better? It's there to stay. I would ask that the board would get a committee, because you have several committees on special ed, and learn what special ed really is. It's a lifetime, and it's only getting bigger. Thank you.
Tom Dietz.
Good evening. My son was held back from school last Wednesday. He had a little incident that happened in school, and I was sitting at the bus stop for about 45 minutes to an hour. He gets done at 2:10. The school called me at my other daughter, don't catch a bus. I had to leave my house to go to my other daughter's school to pick her up because she don't catch a bus. And then they finally called me an hour and a half later to tell me my son was held back at school. Now, under his IEP, on page 8, it states if he has any questions or if he starts to shut down because he's under the Disability Act and he's in special ed, a confined class, that he's able to use the phone to call his parent and neither the security or a higher up, which I don't expect a phone call right away. You know, understand what I'm saying? 20 minutes, half hour into it. But somebody in that school district could have picked the phone up and said, Mr. Dietz, your son's not going to be on the bus for this reason. I called transportation 2-3 times. They reached out to the bus driver, stated he wasn't on the bus, And then I started to reach out to the school at that time, and when it comes towards the end of the day, you can't reach nobody in that school district. And that was my concern right there with him. And I had one more concern too. I filled a HIB out last year twice. Well, I filled out one, then the school was supposed to fill out a HIB. I should have got a letter in 30 days. I never received one. But it was an ongoing incident that happened through Superior Court. About a month ago, I won the case in Superior Court, which is still an ongoing incident. I'm filing another case coming up on the 18th. I'm meeting with my attorney. But I wanted to have that HIB resubmitted now since I won that case in Superior Court. So how do I go about resubmitting that HIB?
I'm sorry, we can't address you directly. My recommendation would be perhaps after the meeting, you can speak to.
Well, I'm making an appointment. I ain't got time. I've been waiting here almost an hour and a half now, so I don't want to wait another hour and a half.
Well, if you would call the superintendent's office, I'm sure that the superintendent can address your concerns and.
I'll get in touch with you tomorrow.
Okay, and I got one more issue I want to address now. I don't know if I should address it now, but I'm going to go ahead and address it. Anytime I see Mrs. Grucci, I always go up and greet her and all. I don't have a bad attitude, and for somebody, my wife had an incident that happened at my house, and she fell on the floor, which I wasn't even there. And one of your employees called her into the office there and asked her what happened. Once my wife stated what happened, it should have been left alone. I don't think your employee should have sat there and asked her if I beat her up. That's just putting me down. That's just, it's totally uncalled for. And I like that addressed too, and I should get an apology letter on that because he went way above his level for saying that. Now, I know you can't say nothing, but I mean, the bottom line is, he could call her in, which has work to do. But once my wife self-explanatory herself and said what happened, he should have never put my name or my son's name into it.
I'll get in touch with you tomorrow.
Yeah,
We'll
on that,
work
because
on
you
all three.
understand that, that's pretty disgraceful. And, we'll talk tomorrow about another issue I got.
Okay.
That's it. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Dietz. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to come up and make a comment?
Buenas, yo no hablo inglés. ¿Alguien me puede traducir?
Okay.
Tengo el papel aquí, si quiere alguien lo puede leer.
Okay. Yes. She's asking, she has comments, and I will do my very best to translate. Okay. ¿Cuál es su nombre?
JC Sánchez.
JC Sanchez.
Okay. Yo lo voy a leer en español. Okay.
Is there someone in the audience that might be able to translate for Ms. Sanchez?
Está bien, ella lo va a traducir.
Ella
vino.
okay.
Ponla aquí para que no te
Yeah, it would be better than.
Good morning, good evening. My name is Jessie Sanchez, and I live at 824 Quince Street in Vineland.
Please speak up.
Jonathan Santana is my son. He is a special education student and also a bilingual student. I am here tonight to speak because I have a big concern. Last year, my son Jonathan received ESL classes in a small group. This year, he is receiving ESL classes in a group of 10 to 12 students. I would like to know who made this decision to change the way ESL is taught. I don't understand how my son is going to learn English with so many students in the class. My son's IEP says that he must receive instructions in a small group. Why this radical change? This is affecting my son's learning and the learning of other students in the district. My wish is that the ESL instruction goes back to the way it was last year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Odette Rios, and I reside in Axel Avenue in Vineland, New Jersey. I'm the mom of two kids. One is in 5th grade and the other one is in 6th grade. And they benefit from the bilingual program. I have noticed a big change in their education. My children tell me they are not happy with the ESL class because they are not receiving the same attention. They love their teacher, but she has too many kids in the class. They also tell me that there are students that know a lot of English and others that are just starting to learn English. This is very concerning because I feel it is not the best way for them to learn English. I moved here 2 years ago. I have seen their progress. I was very proud because my kids were in bilingual program because it was one of the best programs in the state. I saw on TV when teachers receive certificates for their good work in the ESL bilingual program. I asked why, if it was a model program, why we had to change it. I feel that we should make the program better and have better quality instead of changing it so it has less education service and less educational quality. We should work together, make sure the bilingual ESL program continues to be a model program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Me too, I'm sorry. Good evening, my name is Felipe Chaparro. I am a social communicator for peace with emphasis in conflict resolution and community investigation. I graduated from the University Santo Tomás de Aquino in the city of Bogotá, Colombia in 2013. I am a social leader in a cultural organization that uses the arts and music as a way to help kids about drugs, violence, or any other conflict that affects the community. I live at 587B North Valley, and today it's an honor to be here and have the opportunity to speak to you as a representative of the Executive Board for the Vineland Bilingual ESL Program Parent Advisory Community, and speak about our children's educational needs. I have two concerns I would like to speak about. The first, one of the most important, has to do with the ESL bilingual program. My son, Denis Santiago, who is 7 years old and is a 2nd grade, receives bilingual and ESL service as well as many other students at Sabater School. My concern has to do with the big change that has happened this year with the program and the numbers of students. According to the law that I have read, the bilingual code says that every student should get at least 30 minutes of English as a second language, and that the students should be grouped in small numbers. My son is pulled for 30 minutes for his ESL class, but there is a lot of students in the class. He is just beginning to learn English. I think this affects my son's learning as well as the rest of the students who are learning English. Second, why did this change happen? We received a letter stating the change, but I don't understand how this change benefits my son. I have here the great things that the bilingual program and the ESL program is doing for the students. Just last year, I read in the paper that it was one of the best programs in the state. It just doesn't make sense to me. On a personal note, I would like to share that I am Colombian and many people don't have the privilege to study and get an education. Thanks God, I had the opportunity and I am very conscious that without education, I could not have developed the qualities that are helping me today to be successful here in the United States. For me, personally, a quality education is the key to open doors in this great country. Especially, learning English is very important for the communication and development of students. I feel that the education that my son will be seeing in this important stage of his life will define his future and as a person and as a professional here in the United States. This is why I work very hard and I work constantly and with discipline so he can receive everything that he needs. I would like to see if we could meet to talk more about this and really give you our position as parent and representative of the community. Thanks for your time. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask that for those parents that just came up to speak, would you please make sure you write down your name and telephone number so that Mr. Fry, who is in charge of that area, can contact the parents and discuss any issues regarding your concerns with the class sizes, regarding the ESL and bilingual education program. Yes. Para el beneficio de ustedes que no entienden inglés, antes de ir a esos padres que vinieron al frente, por favor, antes que se vayan, por favor, deje su nombre y su número de teléfono para que el señor Fry, el señor que está aquí, él es el encargado de el programa bilingüe y el programa ESL. Él va a poder hablar con ustedes y entonces, cualquier, see, this is my Spanish here. Si ustedes pueden hablar con él y posiblemente tratar de llegar a una solución. Okay. Thank you. Y perdona por el español.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Myra Arroyo, and I'm here to ask the Board of Education and the administration, I'm hoping that you can answer this for me. Which core curriculum content standard does this newly purchased gym equipment achieve to help our students? Can anyone answer that? What is the core curriculum content standard that gym equipment that we just purchased? How does that help achieve our students? I know it's already a done deal, but the reason I'm here is because when I saw that, we're struggling with our class sizes. I see school teachers requesting school supplies, help to purchase books, and I see, nurses being extended. I want to know, what is the core curriculum content? Does that gym equipment help achieve our student? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. Lou Russo, 154 Avis Court, Vineland. And I also want to thank the parents who came here to speak on that ESL issue. Dr. Gruccio and I have been trying to find some time to meet for, several issues that have, cropped up in the school year. They always do. That was one of them. Unfortunately, both of our schedules are very difficult, but I feel that I have to do some justice to this issue, particularly for our parents who took some time to come out tonight and to speak. As soon as the schedules were changed for ESL late in the summer, I started to get calls from teachers that were very panicked when they got their schedules, because with their experience, they knew that it's not going to work. So they were very upset when they saw that they're working 3 schools in a single day. Every day they traveled to 3 schools. Some traveled to 2 schools. They realized that it might look good on paper or it might fit on the computer somewhere, but the reality is that when you're going from, let's say, Petway in the morning to Barcy in the middle of the day and then Lincoln Avenue later in the day, there are 2 travel times that have to be built into that, plus your lunch and your prep. You're missing, essentially, 120 minutes out of that workday. It's not really an efficient use of us, right, as teachers. What happens for the students, of course, is that in order to schedule it, you can only be at one of those schools at a particular time. They're forced to pull students out of math, which is PARCC tested, which is critical, right? Or you have to pull them out of language arts, which an ESL student needs, right? Or it's their special education basic skill period, or it's time with their occupational therapist or their speech therapist. So these are the real-life conflicts that have cropped up. The teachers have given it a couple weeks to pilot it, to try it. I had to talk a highly effective teacher last week out of resigning, and that was difficult because facing what she faced every day, I don't know that I could have dealt with that. We had a program that gave them 45 minutes, and now we're cutting it down to 30 with passing time. When in elementary school environment, you're walking kids back and forth, the 30 minutes becomes essentially about 20. Small group instruction required under the code, as my friend from Columbia pointed out to us. Small group instruction, we have classes where there are 16, 19, and 21 kids. That's not small group instruction. In some cases, they're sharing space, with other classrooms. So there are 2 sets of instruction going on in one room in multiple languages. It's not ideal. Space is tight, especially at Rossi. There are more people working there this year than last year, and all the years as the middle school. So I'm very concerned about that issue because they're the most at-risk students, I think, that we have. And their PARCC scores, if you take a look, I'm sure Mrs. Rodolfo could point that out, have showed greater growth over the years than I think any other documented subgroup. The code also allows putting multiple grade levels together. We didn't do that in the past. It's one of the reasons why we're not to the degree that we are now, and I think that's why we're a model program. But now we have situations where there are 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders together, or 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The disparity between their ability levels is so large that now you're essentially teaching really just individuals, and when you split that 30 minutes up to an individual, an individual, an individual, an individual, we're all a small group, because that's about what it would look like at a horseshoe table. How much time could I give you as their ESL teacher? I didn't really want to bring this up in public, of course. I'm trying to learn slowly. But I went to the Title III meeting on this last week, and I was just blown away by what I heard, by the respect that these parents had, the appreciation of everything that we supply here, that they said in this country, they were so thankful that I had to speak out. My grandparents came here, they couldn't speak English. So I understand the value of upward mobility. I mean, I have a charmed life because of education. It's the only thing that does it. I just want to see those students have that same opportunity. Point, to be simple and not to belabor it, we need to hire more ESL staff. I know they're hard to find, right, but there are ways to do it. We can do it. It's very critical. I was touched the other night last week. I walked out of there reflecting on the stories that I'm hearing in there, and even, many of you have similar stories, I'm sure. I was touched. So I think we just need to do this because it's a very important subgroup of our students. They are the future, right? And our numbers are higher. I think we're about 100 plus more students in ESL this year than last. And from what I'm told, if that's not me. Oh, sorry. I thought that was like the Oscars, right? The time's up. But I think we're 2 staff persons down in ESL, so you can understand how the class sizes increase. the code, allows those grade level things, the disparity, the ranges, I should say, of grades. For school districts that are small, that have isolated staff, isolated numbers, small numbers, it's really, in my opinion, in the opinion I think of many others, it's not meant for a district of our size where we have the numbers of bilingual and particularly ESL students, because this is isolated to ESL. All right. Even the space at Rossi that this teacher is using, literally, friends, could fit inside of this U. Right? And there are like 8 or 12 kids in this space, literally. Okay, and the walls are right there, so students are even falling. So respectfully, I don't mean to belabor an issue, but I think this is a priority that I ask you please tonight to consider and try to rectify. Maybe through some aggressive marketing for some extra teachers as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Maria Lavoie. I think most of you know me. I started teaching actually English as a second language in 1973 here in the Vineland Public Schools at the old Menny's program. And then I became a supervisor. So when they talk about how difficult it is to teach so many different levels and so many different age groups within the same group, because, I mean, I'm telling you, I know from experience, it's almost impossible. I understand that, students get 30 minutes, but when you consider going to the class, picking up the students, bringing them back, sitting them down, that cuts down the time tremendously, especially then if you have different ability levels. You're going to have students who are beginners in English. You're going to have the intermediate and advanced. How is it possible to address all those students within the same amount of time in a small group situation? Well, that's not even a small group, because I know that for years we wanted the bilingual program housed in one building. Well, we finally got that. We got Johnstone students over to Sabater. The only problem with that now is that the bilingual teachers went over to Sabater, but not all the ESL teachers. I understand one teacher went over there, which makes scheduling terrible. It's really, really difficult. You can't expect a teacher to have 10 to 12 students in one group and be able to address all their needs. The other thing is that our bilingual program here in the schools for the last 3 or 4 years, I think, has been doing so well. It's been recognized by the state. And we have, because of exemplary supervisor and teachers that we have here in the Vineland Public Schools, last year, 4 of Vineland's bilingual and ESL programs became model programs, which, in case you don't know what that means, it's really hard to get to that point. And it means that other districts will send their teachers to Vineland to observe the teachers, to see how the program is broken down, and learn and go back to their districts to set up. With the situation now, we're no longer going to be a model program, because what is so model about going from 6 students in a class, in a group, to 10 or 12 when you can't meet all their needs? It's basically impossible. We also, as you know, have the English-only program, which is for those students who speak any other language other than other than Spanish. We have Chinese, we have Greek, Gujarati. We have a lot of students in those programs. Last year, I believe, there were in 2 particular schools, and so the students were bused to those schools, and we had the ESL teachers there. It worked out just fine. But now they're based in their home schools, which, as he was saying, teachers have to travel to all those schools, pulling them out from important class periods and not being able to give them, once you pull them out, the amount of information and education that they need. It's just not fair to them. And again, because the teachers have to travel. I, for one, know that is very difficult. I didn't have to travel, thank goodness, but I knew teachers who had to travel. And, you run to the building, and you put down your things, and you get your students and bring them over, and you're just, your brain is going in 20 million directions. It's very, very difficult to do. Quite a difference from when you're in your classroom, you have your materials here, you bring in this group, you know what to do with them. But it's very, very difficult for them. I understand someone said that it was a problem with busing students. However, the students were moved out of Johnstone, the AMSA program was put there, and all the students from the AMSA program from the school district are bused to Johnstone. I don't know where we get the money to bus students to Johnstone for that program, but we can't find the money to take the students from other schools to one or two particular schools for their needs. You know, I don't see where the need is any more different. And of course, you know, what has been brought up before, the AstroTurf for the football field, which, I mean, hey, I love sports. I played them in high school, and I'm all for it. But, you know, where do our needs lie? I mean, I can't see spending all that money for AstroTurf for 5 or 6 games in 1 year, and then not being able to provide a quality education for the other students that need it so badly. So I just want to ask you to please take a closer look at the situation and try to find a way to remedy it before the year is out, because the students are going to lose an awful lot of educational information. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Megan Greenfield. I am the instructional coach for the middle school. I travel to all the middle schools, and I apologize. I'm so not prepared, but as we were talking and as people were coming up, things just got to me, and I wanted to kind of share my thoughts respectfully. So as an instructional coach, I travel among the 3 schools. I also travel to Johnstone as well. And I work with not just math teachers, I also work with any subject area teacher, even block, with things such as their SGOs or EdConnect or a plethora of different things. And these are some things that one major issue that I see, class size. It's getting out of hand. Frankly, it's getting out of hand, extremely large across the schools, except for AMSA. Except for Johnstone, across the schools. I'll give you an example. I was talking to a social studies teacher at one of the schools, and we were talking about, I forget what we were talking about, but she came to me and she said, you know, I just got 6 new students in one day in one class. So imagine 6 brand new kids walking in your class all at the same time. Okay, that's tough. That's tough. I give PD often for our staff, and we have, from being a coach for 3 years, we have wonderful staff. They're extremely talented and have a lot of amazing ideas. Sometimes they get pulled from my PD. For example, this happened the other day. She was getting her 33rd kid in her math class. And she had to leave my PD because she had to go and get things together for this student, but it was her 33rd student in her math class. How can you do small group instruction is another thing. And I'm always available to everyone to help with that piece, because it's super important. Small group instruction is really where you're going to make the most gains. 33 kids. I'm trying to wrap my head around one teacher, how you can do that with 33 kids. Test scores. Okay, so we looked at test scores. Dina did a wonderful job with that, and I was the one that screamed, can you slow down? Because I wanted to see them. Maybe the decline in numbers has something to do with class sizes, possibly. I'm thinking, like I said, and I see this, I'm in all the schools, I work with teachers constantly, I see their instruction, and they're wonderful. We are very lucky to have such wonderful instructors here, so maybe there's something else that we need to tackle here, and I think it might be this class size issue. We closed a school, my school. Not sure if that might have been the best option here, but maybe there's something else we can do. I know you bring a problem. You have a problem, you always bring a solution, and that was what I always strived to say to my team members when I was a team leader. So we need a solution, and we are all part of this solution. We will help you, but we need you to take this seriously, because it's affecting our kids and our future. So thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments? Anybody want to bring something up with regards to old business? Any comments regarding new business? Board member remarks. Let's start with Mr. Fiocchi.
Nothing at this time.
Just like to thank everybody that came forward to address the board tonight. It's important that we hear from parents, students, and our staff. I would hope that the district is looking at the impact that closing 2 elementary schools had on our population sizes, and that is an ongoing examination, because the reason the schools are closed is to save money, obviously, but sometimes maybe the true costs aren't always there when you look at it. So I would hope that we continue to review that and to make the needed adjustments, and some of them might cost us a little bit more money in hiring additional staff or taking staff that we have and repurposing them to where they're needed. But the building size thing is a real issue, and I'm not the facilities director, and I don't know what our desk space is in the district, but thank you for bringing it forward. It's something that I know many of my teacher friends are concerned with too. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Medio?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Sobrana?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Jennings?
I think it's all been said. Thank you.
Well, I would just like to congratulate again all of the teachers and staff members that were honored for their perfect attendance. It's really something to be said to show up day in and day out, and I know that it's difficult. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the parents, students, our flag saluters, but in particular the students that came here tonight and the teachers that are here supporting each other and giving us an insight into what is going on. I'm extremely proud of the fact that the bilingual education program here in the Vineland Public Schools is a model program for the state, and I want to make sure that we continue having the very best bilingual education program and ESL program for our students. I'm hoping that when parents leave their names and numbers, and there's going to be some communication, collaboration with administration, and we can figure out a solution, because we want the quality to continue going up and want our children to rise as well. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate you being here, and I apologize because I wish that I could speak in Spanish exactly the same. But muchas gracias por estar aquí hoy. Coming from a family where my parents only spoke Spanish, I understand what it's like. And I know that sometimes it's very difficult for parents to come to a board meeting when they don't speak both languages very well. So it takes courage, and it takes a lot of love for your children to be here. So thank you very much for supporting them. And I just want to thank everyone else. And is there Dr. Gruccio? Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?